The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
Good day with your major newscast. I'm Jessica Daw. First with the highlights. A major call center operating in Guyana this morning announced plans to expand to other Caribbean countries. The Environmental Protection Agency is still searching for hard evidence to back up reports of pollution of the Atlantic Sea. In Linden, a man who allegedly attacked police with a cutlass and broken bottles has been shot and injured. In the region, Barbados' main opposition party has taken the Mia Mottley-led administration to task for what it says is her poor performance dominated by fanfare. And internationally, Myanmar's military rulers are facing international condemnation for the jailing of ousted democratically elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi. The details of these stories and more in just a moment.
Advertise with us on News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM for best coverage on programs on motivation, beauty and health, parenting and relationships, knowing your rights, and a variety of enlightening content, and get value for your money. Call our helpful staff today on 223-1056 or 223-1041 today.
Now for the news in detail. Teleperformance, Guyana's largest international call center, is planning to expand its operations to the Caribbean. Teleperformance's country manager for Guyana, Luis Barreto, this morning told his company's 5th anniversary observance that plans are in train to set up a call center operations in other Caribbean countries.
We are working on a Caribbean expansion. Teleperformance has a very genuine interest to not just grow in Guyana, but really look at what else is out there in Caribbean. As you know, or if you don't know, we do have presence in Jamaica, but we're still missing a lot of the smaller countries out there to be able to deliver. The experience that we've had in Guyana has told the company that the level of English, the cultural affinity, and the right skill of leadership is there to be able to promote.
He says that in addition to the 1,200 jobs in Guyana, Teleperformance plans to hire 3,000 persons as part of its expansion in the Caribbean. Mr. Barreto says that eventually a number of Guyanese managers will be relocated from Teleperformance's operations in Guyana.
And I also intend for Guyana to be the main sponsor of that expansion, both financially and resource perspective. What it means is that we're going to be funding out of Guyana that expansion into smaller countries, and we will be procuring and providing opportunities for resources and leadership resources to help me branch out, which means there might be some relocation opportunities, there might be some regional opportunities that will be fulfilled out of this team in Guyana. So that is very exciting to me, and that's very exciting because, Guyana will be put at the forefront of the expansion. Whatever countries we decide to go in, it'll be led by Guyanese leadership, which to me is very exciting.
Teleperformance's country manager, Luis Barreto. The governments of Guyana and Ghana are banking heavily on their private sectors to actively pursue a range of projects. Ghana and Guyana are both oil-producing nations. They are also rich in agriculture and gold. The Vice President of Ghana, Mahmoud Bawumia, hopes that the private sector can finance a range of projects, generate revenue, and improve the economy. He says the private sector's role includes solving problems, keeping interest rates low, stable exchange rates, and reducing the cost of electricity. The Ghanaian Vice President and Guyana's Vice President Barbados are due later this week to sign a memorandum of understanding. Vice President Baumia, who is an economist, does not want the planned memorandum of understanding to be just a piece of paper.
We'll have some time over the next 2 days to discuss some more in detail as we meet with the private sector, with the universities, with the diaspora, and so on, to share ideas. But I think we want practical steps. We want to say we want to do A, B, C, D, and get those things done. We will sign memoranda of understanding and so on, but we don't want them to stay in paper. We're going to implement so that very soon the fruits of this strategic partnership will be obvious for everyone to see. And I'm looking forward to that.
Also speaking at the state dinner last night in honor of the visiting Ghanaian Vice President was President Irfan Ali. Dr. Ali says the Memorandum of Understanding will be a macro framework for private sector collaboration with the common aim to improve the livelihoods of Ghanaians and Guyanese.
Today, this is what these two governments are subscribing to do. Collaborating with each other, setting a framework that will allow a smooth flow for our private sector and for our government services. And that is why there is so much emphasis placed at the highest level of government on this relationship and the broadening and cementing of this relationship. For us, it is not just another bilateral or another engagement. It is a strategic engagement that has very measured strategic outcomes.
President Irfan Ali. The Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, says it has come up empty-handed in efforts to locate a substance that has reportedly polluted a section of the Atlantic Sea offshore Guyana. Head of the EPA, Mr. Kamraj Parsaram, says that due to bad weather, a fishing vessel returned to shore with a team of government officials. He says also he was part of an aerial surveillance team, but nothing also was seen.
Cover the entire fishing area and close shore as well. And we covered the entire fishing zone within the 45 miles radius reported, and using our understanding of the currents, and I didn't see anything that resembled what was reported. Unfortunately, the fishing vessel as well couldn't make it out because of the weather condition. They left at 8 this morning, and because of the high waves and conditions and the safety of the staff, they had to return to shore.
He says that the EPA has begun making arrangements to obtain satellite imagery to determine whether there was any spill from any of the floating production, storage, and offloading vessels, drill ships, or other vessels.
My next move is to depend on calling into the specific locations, all the potential operators offshore, to look at satellite imagery to see what happened over the past couple of days, to see if there was actually any leakage from any one of those. So right now it's not confirmed. I can't say it was from anything else, from any of the operators. So the investigation has to continue using the remote technology.
The EPA director is also appealing to any of the fisher folk who took the video to submit samples of the water if they had collected any.
I have also asked, and I'm pleading to the fishermen, whoever took the video, if they're taking any sample of that material and they can bring it to us, we can be able to test it and see, confirm whether it's oil and whether it's from any one of those operators.
Mr. Parsaram says the National Oil Spill Committee of the Civil Defense Commission and the Fisheries Department of the Ministry of Agriculture are also involved. The Guyana government cannot afford a 20% wage and salary increase because the public sector wage bill is already high, and any such pay hike will reduce the purchasing power of more dollars in hand. Banking and finance expert Mr. Joel Bagwandin says that the 7% wage and salary increase retroactive to January 1, 2020 is decent because, among other reasons, it was above inflation at mid-year of 5.6%. He says the total employment cost for public servants is within the highest range that can be permitted when compared to the state's revenue at the moment. He says that businesses and government's employment cost is not recommended to be more than 15% to 30% of total revenue. Basing his calculation from data extracted from various annual reports, he said that in 2019, the central government's employment cost was 33.21% of total revenue. He also cautions that a 20% wage increase for public servants can potentially result in a 25% inflation, which will have effectively diminished the purchasing power of the currency by 25%. The non-governmental civil society organization, Article 13, wants the government to put constitutional reform on the agenda. The organization says that it is a better step than the Attorney General Anil Nandalal merely saying that the government cannot alone amend the Constitution because it does not have a two-thirds majority. According to Article 13, that does not stop the governing People's Progressive Party from putting and promoting its ideas into the public domain. Article 13 notes that the political parties have rendered useless a new Section 11 to the Representation of the People Act resulting from the reforms of 2000 and 2001 that provides constituency seats. That organization says it is not true that it is calling for a political system to be restructured. Article 13 also wants the ruling party to share its ideas on the second round of electoral reforms. Guyana's coronavirus death toll has now passed 1,000. The Health Ministry says that dating back to March last year, 1,006 persons have now succumbed to COVID-19. Official figures show that a man and a woman in their 70s who were from Region 4 Demerara Mahaica are the latest deaths. The Health Ministry says that of the 54 persons who are hospitalized, 17 are very sick and are receiving intensive care. Doctors have ordered 913 persons to isolate themselves at home to avoid spreading the virus. There are 42 new cases. President Irfaan Ali has announced plans to intensify Guyana's Information Communications Technology (ICT) agenda. Addressing the Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association GMSA Awards dinner at the weekend, he said hundreds of communities would be connected to the Internet later this year.
Currently, a program is on the way to install ICT hubs across the country to provide and improve connectivity. In this regard, we have earmarked US $17.4 million for improving Internet connectivity in close to 200 communities throughout Guyana. This will be rolled out this year.
The president has also announced plans to set up a specialized information technology teaching learning facility.
Government is accelerating the process of increasing ICT literacy by providing equipment and software to schools, reforming the school's curriculum, and providing community-based training. And it is my intention to move towards establishing an International Institute of Technology in Guyana to further ICT literacy very soon.
Among the achievements by Dr. Ali's administration that he has pointed to are liberalization of the telecommunications sector, the removal of value-added tax from mobile data and cell phones, and the increasing number of fiber optic cables that are being landed here. A man has been shot and injured after he attacked police with a cutlass and broken bottles. Injured is 36-year-old Marlon Brewster of South Amelia's Ward, Linden. The Guyana Police Force says its Office of Professional Responsibility is probing the shooting on December 1. Investigators say police were probing a report of alleged simple larceny of a generator in which Brewster is a suspect. However, when they arrived at his residence, Mr. Brewster was informed of the allegation against him. Police alleged that he verbally threatened them and armed himself with a cutlass. After the cutlass was taken away, police say he continued verbally abusing and threatening them while at the same time hurling beer bottles. Police say after Mr. Brewster broke 2 bottles and attacked one of them, he was shot to his body but managed to escape. The generator, which was suspected to have been stolen, 2 brush cutters, a stereo speaker, 115 grams of marijuana, and a smoking utensil were also found in the shop. 2 men have been arrested in connection with the alleged discovery of $12.5 million worth of marijuana in a car. Police say they found the marijuana in a car at a roadblock opposite the Weldad police station, West Coast, Barbados. Investigators say the driver of the car has since admitted that the marijuana belongs to him. He reportedly said that he was hired by the passenger. Those arrested are the driver of the car bearing license number PYY 9885 and a male passenger. Police say that when the car was stopped, the male passenger exited and began walking away, but he was apprehended. After police did not find anything illegal on the driver and the passenger, they say they found 7 bulky parcels containing a quantity of leaves, seeds, and stems suspected to be cannabis. Now for the news in the region. Barbados' Democratic Labour Party has taken the ruling Barbados Labour Party, BLP, to task for dismally poor performance on several pressing national issues. The president of the DLP, Verla de Pisa, at the weekend declared that it was ready to step in and rescue suffering Barbadians. More in this report from Barbados Today.
Government has dropped the ball, so charged the president of the Democratic Labour Party, Verla de Pisa, at the weekend as the party celebrated the 60th anniversary of first attaining government while presenting its candidates for the upcoming general elections. Listing spiraling debt, the high cost of living, high joblessness, and rising crime among prevalent problems, the DLP president declared her team is ready to take up the reins of power.
In 3.5 years of optics, our people are suffering from eye strain. The prescription, though, is sitting here among you. all the glitz and the glamour and the pageantry, no accounting. We don't know how much it costs. And our people are still hungry. Our people still need jobs. Our people are hopeless. And we see that recipe for disaster of high unemployment and high cost of living. And it plays itself out in the destruction of our social fabric.
DePisa accused the government of favoring big businesses while failing to provide adequate support for householders and small enterprises.
There must be an economic gaze into the future. And it cannot be the constant propping up of established businesses by giving subsidies. What about direct influence in a household by improving disposable income, by reducing VAT, I don't know, on freight? Because after all, what is the value added in freight? You can't help but bring the goods here. And we heard Dr. Clyde Maskell indicate that there was the fiscal space to do it. So that was in August. 4 months later, we can only conclude that there is no political will to do it.
President of the opposition Barbados Democratic Labour Party, Verla de Pisa. A top officer of Suriname's National Security Directorate has been arrested, allegedly with more than 500 kilograms of cocaine. He has been identified only as a 56-year-old Lieutenant Stephen J. Surinamese media reported Sunday that about $10,000 in cash was also found and seized in the vehicle he was driving. He was arrested on a Saturday evening, December 4, near the checkpoint in Pekin Saron in the Paro district, said to be a major hub for narcotics destined to Europe and the United States. Authorities said that Stephen J. tried to evade a roadblock on the way to Pekin Saron and was pursued by members of the Regional Assistance Team, and he was intercepted. Agents said they found the cocaine in the vehicle, which is believed to have been collected from an airdrop. The Suriname Police Force said 15 jute bags of a white substance, presumably cocaine, weighing about 516 kilograms. The case would be handed over to the military police for further investigation. The Elections and Boundaries Commission, EBC, has discontinued its plan to test an electronic data collection system during the Tobago House of Assembly THA election today. This came after the EBC's demonstration of the project on Saturday, where the chief election officer reiterated that the voting process was unchanged. More in this report from TT Live Online.
The Elections and Boundaries Commission has decided to not move forward with their plans to roll out an electronic data collection pilot project in the Scarborough, Mount Grace, and Mount St. George Goodwood districts during Monday's Tobago House of Assembly elections. This decision comes following mock voting demonstration sessions, including a data entry clerk, the Commission undertook on Saturday for the media and political parties to witness. In a statement, EBC said on Saturday it met with representatives of the media and political parties contesting the election and subsequently agreed that it will not move forward with its pilot project for parallel data collection at polling stations in the specified electoral districts of Scarborough, Mount Grace, and Mount St. George Goodwood on Election Day, Monday, 6th December. The release added the Commission listened to all relevant parties and decided to defer for future elections after there is opportunity for further consultation. Although the Commission stressed the usual manual process will continue in tandem with the use of technology, it said the Progressive Democratic Patriots rejected the initiative and declined the EBC's invitation. The EBC said with the local government elections set for 2022, it will take the opportunity to meet with all stakeholders to discuss the advantages of this initiative.
That report from TT Live Online News. St. Vincent and the Grenadines Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has announced that his government will hire teachers, including retired educators, on short-term contracts to fill their place. This is in response to teachers at a secondary school who protested the government's vaccine mandate for the second day in less than a week. He served notice during his weekly appearance on the state-owned NBC radio as teachers at West St. George Secondary School responded to the call of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Teachers Union and sat in their staff room refusing to go to classes. The teachers are standing in solidarity with their colleagues who have opted not to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Last Friday, the teachers at the school, where about 11 of the 31 educators are unvaccinated, wore black and sat in their classroom in protest. Unvaccinated teachers and other public sector workers for whom the jab is required but who have not obtained a medical or religious exemption had until Friday to take the jab or be deemed to have abandoned their posts. Prime Minister Gonsalves said that he had heard about the stance of teachers at West St. George Secondary School, and the Ministry of Education was keeping him informed. And lastly in the region, prominent Antiguan Rastafarian King Frankai has died. He had been suffering with an illness for some time. King Frankai led efforts in Antigua and Barbados for the decriminalization or legalization of cannabis. He was also a well-known sport journalist and cricket commentator. Here now is your international news coming from the BBC.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. Myanmar's military rulers are facing international condemnation after the deposed civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi was given a 4-year prison sentence, later reduced to 2. The United States said her conviction was an affront to democracy and justice. A spokeswoman for the UN Human Rights Chief, Michelle Bachelet, Ravina Shamdasani, called the trial a sham.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights deeply deplores the conviction and sentencing of Aung San Suu Kyi. However, it's quite impressive that tonight in Myanmar, you are still seeing the banging of pots and pans by people in the country in opposition to the military. This kind of a sentence for Aung San Suu Kyi and the continued detention of political opponents, we believe it will only embolden the resistance against the illegitimate rule of the military.
Myanmar's former president, Win Myint, was also sentenced to 4 years. Ms. Suu Kyi faces further charges, which could see her jailed for life. The World Health Organization says there was a surge in malaria last year as the COVID pandemic disrupted health services. In its annual malaria report, the WHO said there were 14 million more cases in 2020. Imogen Folks in Geneva has more details.
In countries where malaria is endemic, lockdowns delayed deliveries of mosquito nets. Some patients missed out on treatment because they couldn't travel. The WHO estimates that 2/3, or 47,000, of the additional malaria deaths in 2020 were linked to the pandemic's disruption of malaria prevention and treatment. But today's report is not all bleak. The WHO had feared malaria deaths in Africa could double last year. Quick action taken by many countries prevented that.
Austria's president has sworn in the former Interior Minister Karl Nehammer as the country's new chancellor. He's the third person from the conservative Austrian People's Party to hold the role in the last 2 months. From Vienna, Bethany Bell.
Mr. Nehammer takes over a party that's been in upheaval ever since Sebastian Kurz stepped down as Chancellor in October after being placed under criminal investigation. Mr. Nehammer says that fighting the coronavirus pandemic will be a top priority, and he's also promised to maintain strong law and order policies. Support for his Conservatives has slumped since the corruption charges against Mr. Kurz emerged.
The chief ministers of 2 northeastern Indian states have called for the withdrawal of a law that gives armed forces special powers to operate in regions affected by insurgencies. Their demand follows the killing of 14 civilians in Nagaland by security forces. BBC News. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has described India as a great power as he arrived in Delhi to strengthen military and energy ties. His comments came ahead of a meeting with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. From Delhi, here's Rajini Vaidyanathan.
President Putin hasn't travelled much since the pandemic, but here he is. And one thing that might be talked about a lot is that India has bought these S-400 surface-to-air missiles from Russia. This actually caused a lot of consternation in the US. The US even threatening sanctions for India buying military equipment from Russia, although it's unlikely to impose sanctions because India is a key player in this region when it comes to countering China. And so the kind of mood music underneath is India's role in this wider region, with both the US and Russia seeing India's strategic importance.
Western powers have called on the Ethiopian government to stop detaining people based on their ethnicity. The US, Britain and others cited reports by human rights groups that many Tigrayans were being rounded up, including priests, the elderly and mothers with their children. They said people were being held without charge in inhumane conditions. The year-long war between Tigrayan forces and the Ethiopian government and its allies has displaced millions of people. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said the army is capable of thwarting any enemy aggression. He was speaking on a visit to eastern Ukraine, close to areas held by Russian-backed separatists. Ukraine has warned of a Russian military build-up near the border. Members of the Green Party in Germany have overwhelmingly backed the formation of a 3-party coalition with the centre-left Social Democrats and the pro-business Free Democrats. It clears the way for a vote on Wednesday in the federal parliament to approve the Social Democrat Olaf Scholz as Chancellor. He'll replace Angela Merkel after 16 years in power. BBC News.
That was your international news. Here now is a recap of the highlights. A major call centre operating in Guyana this morning announced plans to expand to other Caribbean countries. The Environmental Protection Agency is still searching for hard evidence to back up reports of pollution of the Atlantic Sea. In Linden, a man who allegedly attacked police with a cutlass and broken bottles has been shot and injured. In the region, Barbados' main opposition party has taken the Mia Mottley-led administration to task for what it says is her poor performance dominated by fanfare. And internationally, Myanmar's military rulers are facing international condemnation for the jailing of ousted democratically elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi. And that was your major newscast. I am Jessica Daw.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.